Hey guys, this is going to be very different than my normal videos. Normally, when I get home from VidCon, I just edit all the cool footage that I had and just make a very positive video. This video is not going to be as positive, but I really feel like I need to make it because there's some rumors floating around, and I've seen those rumors. I've seen a 4chan thread about it today, and I want to make sure that I get out ahead of those rumors and make sure that I control this message before you hear about it from somebody else. If this doesn't come across like one of my normal videos, it's because I'm very, very anxious. I'm very anxious after what happened. I've been anxious about what happened 3 months before it happened. I've been anxious ever since. So this is going to be a very hard video to make, but I do think it's important. I've gone to VidCon for 4 years in a row, and I've done panels and signings, and I've met a bunch of different people, and it's one of the best experiences of my life. This year's VidCon was a little bit different because I went into it very, very nervous. I was a little bit of social anxiety, and that social anxiety got worse because some altercations were happening between the crowds and security, so that made me very nervous. But what made me more nervous is one of my panels ending cyberbullying and then one of my fellow panelists. I always do one of these cyberbullying panels each time if they ask me because I think I have some really good stories. You know, I don't get upset about the jokes. I don't get upset about the memes. I don't get upset about the critical comments or critical videos people make about me. What I do get upset about and what I do consider to be cyberbullying is things like death threats or getting doxxed or having your information leaked or getting your stuff hacked and deleted like happened to me at VidCon last year, or the time people sent a box of shit to my front door, or even the time where someone legitimately tried to hire an assassin on the Tor network to assassinate me. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, and I think it's important to go to these cyberbullying panels and let people know that that's what I've endured and that they could have it as bad as well, and then help them find the tools to how to defeat and defend themselves from that kind of thing. And doing a panel like that, I've done hundreds of panels now at this point, and I'm very comfortable doing it, and I'm comfortable talking about the topic. But what made me nervous about this is when I discovered that one of my panelists was a notable feminist by the name of Anita Sarkeesian. And I was just afraid that we would clash there. I was afraid that I would do something or say something that would upset her. We philosophically disagree in some small areas, but in general, we have some of the same ideas, and I think we want some of the same goals. So I thought it would be okay. I didn't want to cancel the panel or anything like that, but I certainly didn't want to step on her toes or upset her in any way. And when I say I worried about this panel, I mean I've worried about it every single day for the last 6 weeks. I would go over with my wife over and over again the points that I wanted to make on the panel. I would run it over with my friends. Even right up to the panel, I ran it by a fellow panelist. I ran it by the moderator, and they all said that they thought it sounded good, that it wasn't offensive, that it wasn't hurtful in any way. I wanted to make sure that whatever I said there still made the points that are important to me, but would not be considered to be an attack or inflammatory or upsetting in any way to any other panelist or anybody in the audience or anybody watching at home. And when it came to Anita, I specifically did not want to upset her. And I was very, very worried that because of my Francis videos and because of some of the stupid things I said in the past, she might have some preconceived notions about me. She might have some misconceptions about me and be preemptively ready to be frustrated or irritated by me. I was even afraid that at one point she might cancel the panel if she knew who I was. Because a lot of people confuse me as being very right or maybe alt-right, when in reality, I consider myself to be a moderate who leans fairly left. And unfortunately, on the first day of VidCon, something happened that made my anxiety go almost completely out of control. During Anita's first panel called Women on Gaming, that panel went very, very wrong, with some people attacking them during the Q&A section. And even during that panel, some people who were sitting right near the front are people she considers to be detractors of hers. And she became so nervous and felt so attacked that she actually called one of those detractors names right to their face. I'm sure you've heard about this controversy. And because of that, I began to be very afraid that if she disagreed with me, she might do the same during our panel, making me feel very uncomfortable and making the audience feel very uncomfortable. And that's definitely not something I could handle. And my anxiety got so bad that really up to about an hour before the panel, I had every intention of canceling on them. But I really don't like upsetting the VidCon team. And I didn't want to have to try to explain all of that to them, the reason I was canceling, but why I would be doing everything else I did that day. And I also thought that could be perceived as an attack. And I just wanted to do the panel, and I just wanted to hope for the best and hope that everything worked out. My anxiety got the best of me, and just about every YouTuber I know, and even some of my fans, and even a fellow panelist that I got to spend some time with, and even the moderator for the panel, I ran by all of my talking points, and asked, do you think this is something that would be offensive? Do you think this is something that would upset Anita or anybody else in the audience? I wanted to make sure to get this right, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced. When I got to the green room for the panel, Anita was there, and I finally worked up the courage to introduce myself and let her know that I do like her Feminist Frequency series, that I find it challenging, and I like to have my misconceptions challenged, and that while I didn't always agree with her, I appreciated her making it, and tried to let her know that she was safe around me and everything was going to be fine. I tried to be friendly, and she was fairly friendly back. Though very reserved, which is understandable because she was having a pretty shit weekend. And I personally think the panel went very well. I got to make all of the major points that I wanted to make. I felt like every other panelist did too. I was very careful not to bogart the time. I was trying to be very careful to not interrupt anybody else, though I would offer a follow-up once they were done speaking. I made some of my major points, which was telling the stories of the things that I've endured, how I've learned to deal with it, about how other YouTubers I've spoken to have endured it as well, and how they choose to deal with it, and the tools that are available there for you. And I think Anita got to make most of her points as well throughout most of the panel. I think everybody got a chance to speak and say how they felt and what they thought was best. I think the only thing that could closely represent an attack on Anita is when she said that she hoped that everybody left the panel angry and bitter and ready to fight. I countered by saying that I personally don't feel those things, and I personally don't choose to do that. And I try to foster a community that's not angry and doesn't fight. I try to foster a community that celebrates beautiful things instead. But I looked directly at her as I said it when I was done, and she seemed comfortable and fine with that answer. Before you knew it, the panel was over, and the moderator said we had about 5 minutes if anybody had any closing statements. So I made a closing statement that it took about a minute to say, and I said that I wanted to remind everybody in the audience that I am a person of privilege as a white cis male, and then I went over the types of attacks that have happened to me again with the assassins and the boxes of feces and all of that kind of stuff, and then just try to remind the audience that if whoever you are, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you, and then try to remind everybody that this isn't a matter of identity politics. This is a human rights issue, that I think these types of attacks are human rights violations, and that we should all consider that so that we can be unified against them. A couple of more panelists had their closing arguments, and then we left the stage, and I'm shaking, very, very nervous, but I felt like it went well. And when I get off of the stage at the bottom of the panels, there's Anita, and she seemed to be very, very upset. And I don't remember exactly what she said. I'm paraphrasing here, but she said in a very upset that I think it was very fucking uncool that you said what you said there at the end, knowing that no one else would have enough time to respond. And I bet you can imagine how that affected my anxiety, because the exact focal point of my anxiety for the entire weekend, in fact, for the last 6 weeks, the nightmare scenario that I was terrified of actually had come true. I had upset somebody who I very, very much had tried to not upset and did not want to upset. And that's the event that everybody's asking me about, and they're wondering if that's true, and that is true. But that's not the only thing that happened. There's a little bit more to this story that I think it's important that you hear, and that's why I'm making this video. Once Anita had realized how nervous I was, she actually took a step back and quickly composed herself, and I asked her for an opportunity to explain myself and explain my point of view, which she was more than glad to do. She invited me back to the green room, where we sat and talked for about 15 minutes. She explained her side of things. I explained my side of things. And while I don't think she agreed with me at the end, she was very willing to listen. And her case was pretty simple. She felt that she didn't get a chance to respond, and that she wasn't going to have enough time to respond, and that the thing that I said was very, very heavily weighted, and that she wanted to make sure that I knew that some people actually use that exact same argument to separate people rather than unify them, and that she did not feel it was a message of unity, and she was actually afraid that I was doing that on purpose, to try to take away from some of the things that she'd said during the panel. The only thing that she said to me that upset me at all as we talked to her past that point was she said that, even though I'm a white cis male, because of my size and my obesity, that's probably why I get a lot of that hate, and I should not phrase this kind of thing as a white cis male. I should phrase it as an obese person, and that's why I get the hate. And I don't necessarily agree, because I would think that me being a white cis male is way more important than me being morbidly obese. Because obviously I'm supposed to come from a place of privilege, so that privilege should certainly be able to overcome me just being fat. And she was surprisingly willing to listen to my point of view, and while I don't think she agreed with most of the things I said, she was willing to listen to my stories and listen to the things that have happened to me in the past and hear my point of view. And she never attacked me further past that point. She didn't have another derogatory thing to say. We actually just sat and debated for 15 minutes and shared each other's point of view. And I thought that was really actually kind of nice. And then after we talked for a little while, she let me know that she had other things to do, and I had other things to do too. I had a creator keynote speech in front of 1,000 people like 20 minutes after our conversation. And I politely asked her for her selfie because I had planned to do that from the beginning anyway. And she politely declined because she said, you know, I don't really know where you stand on these types of things. And I just don't know if I could trust you not to use that against me. And I think that's very fair. And that's pretty much it. That's all that happened. So these rumors, that I got attacked at VidCon, similar to the way Sargon of Akkad did, is, I think, very much blown out of proportion. I do think the initial, verbal assault as I came off a stage was a bit of an attack, but she was very, very quick to turn that into conversation. And I think it's important you know that. A lot of you have heard me tweeting about my anxiety over the weekend. A lot of you were very worried when you heard about this stuff, if you're wondering whether it played into it. And yes, it did. I think it was probably the major focal point of my anxiety for the last 6 weeks. And yes, the exact thing I was afraid of actually happened. And that did throw me for a bit of a loop. But I'm now home and I'm going to go to sleep for the next 20 hours. And at the end of it, I think I'll wake up absolutely fine. So nothing to worry about when it comes to me. And if you're looking to defend me, please do me a favor. Please do not engage with Anita. Please do not throw any hate her way. I genuinely don't think she deserves it for this. She was having a really, really rough weekend to begin with. She's getting a lot of hate on social media after the altercation with Sargon. And I can only imagine she was very, very much on edge that day and certainly did not know me from Adam, so had no reason to trust me. And so I think she deserves a pass here, and I hope you give her one. So that said, I hope this video puts the rumors to bed before they even get out there. I certainly hope this doesn't serve to signal boost it. In fact, I hope it does the exact opposite, that gives you guys no reason to talk about it, because there's nothing to talk about, because it's just a very simple thing that was one and done, and I don't want you guys worrying about it. Now, I'm going to take my wife and my dog to bed, and I'm going to go play my Switch until I pass out. And I will see you guys in about 24 hours. Guys, thanks for watching. I love you very much. And I'll speak with you again soon.